3 weeks ago, my daughter showed up at my door. She was smiling, crying a little, arms open wide like she was expecting a hug, like nothing had ever happened, like she hadn't disappeared from our lives for 20 years, like she hadn't missed her own mother's funeral. "Daddy," she said, "I'm so sorry. I'm finally ready to come home." Her name is Karen. She's 47 years old. And until 3 weeks ago, I hadn't seen her face in person since the day we buried her mother. A day she showed up to 3 hours late, so drunk she could barely stand. But I'll get to that. Standing behind her was a man I'd never met. Tall, slick hair, expensive watch. He stuck out his hand and smiled like we were old friends. "Mr. Callahan, I'm Victor, Karen's husband. It's so great to finally meet you, sir." Third husband, I learned later. But at that moment, all I saw was the look in his eyes, the way they drifted past me and scanned my property, my barn, my fields, my tractor in the driveway. I've been around long enough to recognize that look. It's the look of a man calculating what things are worth. Karen said she wanted to reconcile. She said she'd changed. She said she wanted to make things right. But I knew exactly why she was really there. My name is Robert Callahan. Most folks call me Bobby. I'm 71 years old, and I've worked this land my entire life. And this is the story of how my own daughter tried to come back after 2 decades of silence, not because she missed me, but because she heard there was money to collect. She thought I was just a lonely old farmer who'd be grateful for any attention. She was wrong. The Callahan farm has been in my family for 4 generations. My great-grandfather, Patrick Callahan, bought this land in 1902. 180 acres of Pennsylvania countryside just outside a little town called Millbrook. He was an Irish immigrant with $16 in his pocket and a dream of owning something that was truly his. He built the first farmhouse with his own hands, the one I'm sitting in right now. The bones of it, anyway. We've added on over the years, fixed the roof more times than I can count, replaced the plumbing twice. But the foundation is still Patrick's. The oak beams in the ceiling are still his. When I run my hand along them, I can feel the marks his tools made over 100 years ago. My grandfather worked this land. My father worked this land. And in 1974, when I was 21 years old, my father handed me the keys to the tractor and said, "It's yours now, Bobby. Take care of it." I've been taking care of it ever since. 45 years of early mornings and late nights. 45 years of broken equipment and bad weather and prices that never seemed fair. 45 years of watching the sun come up over the east field and thinking, "This is mine. This is ours. This is home." When I was 23, I married Eleanor. Ellie, that's what I called her. She was a school teacher from the next town over. Brown eyes, kind smile, a laugh that could make the worst day better. She wasn't a farm girl. Her father was an accountant, but she learned. She learned to drive the tractor, to feed the cows, to wake up at 4 in the morning without complaining. We built a life together on this land. We raised 2 children in this house. We celebrated birthdays and holidays and anniversaries right here at this kitchen table. And 3 years ago, on a Sunday morning in March, she died in the bedroom upstairs while I held her hand. 40 years of marriage, gone in a breath. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, I need to tell you about my children, because this story doesn't make sense without understanding who they are, who they became. Karen was our first, born in 1977. She came into the world screaming, and if I'm being honest, she never really stopped. Don't get me wrong, I loved her. I still love her, somewhere in the part of my heart that remembers the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders. But Karen was always difficult, always wanting more than what we had, always looking at the horizon like there was something better out there. She hated the farm, hated the smell of the animals, hated the early mornings, hated that her clothes always had dirt on them. By the time she was 16, she was already talking about leaving. California, she said, or New York, somewhere exciting, somewhere that wasn't here. This place is a prison, she told me once. She was 17. We'd just finished baling hay, and I was tired, and I didn't have the energy to argue with her. I'm not going to waste my life in the middle of nowhere like you did. Those words stuck with me, still do. Michael was different. He was born in 1980, 3 years after Karen, and from the moment he could walk, he wanted to be outside, wanted to be with me, wanted to learn how everything worked. While Karen was in her room dreaming of city lights, Michael was in the barn, learning to milk the cows, learning to fix the equipment, learning the land. He never talked about leaving. He talked about staying. "This place is in my blood, Dad," he told me once. He was maybe 12 years old. "I want to take care of it someday, like you do." And he did. He stayed, he married a wonderful woman named Jenny, had 2 kids of his own. When I started slowing down about 10 years ago, Michael took over the day-to-day operations. He's the one who keeps this place running now. So there they were, my 2 children, one who couldn't wait to leave and one who never wanted to go. And in 2004, Karen finally got her wish. She left on a Tuesday morning in April. She was 22 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. She came downstairs with 2 suitcases, and her mother was standing in the kitchen crying. I was sitting at the table trying to find the words to stop her.
"Karen, please," Eleanor said. "Just wait. Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. I'm suffocating here. I need to live my own life." "But California? You don't know anyone there. You don't have a job lined up." "I'll figure it out. That's what you do when you're not afraid of the world." That was aimed at me. I knew it. I didn't respond. What happened next, I'm not going to repeat everything that was said. Some words, once they're spoken, can't be taken back. Karen said things about me, about Eleanor, about the farm, about the life we'd built. Cruel things. Things a daughter should never say to her parents. And then she walked out the door, got in her car, and drove away. Eleanor cried for 3 days straight. I didn't cry. I just went numb. We didn't hear from Karen for almost 2 years after that. When she finally called, it was to tell us she'd gotten married. A man named Bradley, some kind of real estate developer. She didn't invite us to the wedding, said it was small and intimate. We found out later there were over 100 guests. That was the first husband. He lasted 4 years. Then came the second husband, some tech executive from San Francisco. That one lasted 3. And then, about 5 years ago, she stopped calling altogether. Holidays came and went. Birthdays came and went. I'd send cards to the last address I had for her. I never knew if she got them. But here's the thing, and this is what still keeps me up at night. When Eleanor got sick, I called Karen. I told her the diagnosis: ovarian cancer, stage 3. The doctor said maybe a year, maybe less. "I'll come home," Karen said. I need to figure some things out first, but I'll be there, Dad, I promise." She never came, not once. For 11 months, Eleanor fought that disease. 11 months of chemotherapy and hospital visits and sleepless nights. Michael and Jenny moved into the farmhouse to help. They were there every single day. Pastor David Thornton from our church came by every week to pray with her. And every single day, Eleanor asked the same question: "Has Karen called? Is she coming?" I lied to her. For months, I lied. I'd tell her Karen was busy with work, that she was dealing with her own health issues, that she'd be here soon. But she never came. And what she was actually doing during those 11 months, what she was really focused on instead of her dying mother, I didn't find out until much later. But when I did find out, well, let's just say it explained everything. Eleanor died on a Sunday morning, March 15th, 2021. The Ides of March, they call it, the day Caesar was betrayed. Fitting, I suppose. I was holding her hand. Michael was on her other side. Jenny was standing by the window, quietly crying. Pastor Thornton had been there the night before to say a final prayer. Eleanor looked at me in those last moments. Her eyes were tired, but they were clear.
"Don't let Karen take what Michael earned," she whispered. "He stayed. He sacrificed. The farm is his. Promise me, Bobby." "I promise," I said. She smiled, squeezed my hand one last time, and then she was gone. The funeral was 3 days later. The whole town came out. Eleanor was loved in Millbrook. She'd taught Sunday school for 30 years, volunteered at the food bank, knew everyone by name. The church was standing room only. Michael delivered the eulogy. He did a beautiful job. Talked about his mother's kindness, her strength, her love for this family. And then, about halfway through the service, the doors at the back of the church swung open. Karen walked in. 3 hours late, wearing sunglasses indoors, and even from the front of the church, I could see she was unsteady on her feet. She was drunk. What happened next, the scene she caused, the things she said, I still can't talk about it without my blood pressure rising. Our neighbors, the Hendersons, were sitting right behind us. They saw the whole thing. Half the town saw it. But I'll get to that later, because what matters now is what happened 3 weeks ago, when Karen came back. When she showed up with her third husband and her fake tears and her carefully rehearsed apologies. When she looked at this farm, my family's farm, 4 generations of blood and sweat and sacrifice, and saw nothing but dollar signs. That's when I realized my daughter hadn't come home to make things right. She'd come home to take everything. And I was going to make sure she got exactly what she deserved. For the first few days, I'll admit, a small part of me wanted to believe her. 20 years is a long time. People change. Maybe Karen really had grown up, realized her mistakes, come back to make amends. Maybe losing her mother had finally woken her up to what matters. That's what I told myself as I watched her and Victor settle into the guest room, as she helped Jenny with the dishes after dinner, as she walked around the property, pointing at things and saying, "I forgot how beautiful it is out here." But here's the thing about being a farmer for 45 years. You learn to read the weather. You learn to see the signs that a storm is coming long before it hits. And everything about Karen's visit felt like a storm rolling in. It started with little things, questions that seemed innocent but weren't. "Daddy, have you thought about what you're going to do with this place when you can't work it anymore?" "Daddy, the property taxes must be getting expensive, right?" "Daddy, I saw some new developments going up on the highway. Bet the land around here is worth a fortune now." Victor was worse. He didn't even try to hide it. The second day they were here, I found him walking the property line with his phone out, taking pictures. When I asked what he was doing, he just smiled. "Beautiful land, Mr. Callahan. Just appreciating it. You know, they're building a lot of new housing developments around here. Retirement communities, golf courses. This acreage would be perfect for something like that." "It's a farm," I said. "Been a farm for 120 years. Gonna stay a farm." Of course. I'm just saying, if you ever wanted to cash out, you'd be sitting on a gold mine." I didn't respond, but I remembered that conversation. On the 4th night, Karen made her first real move. We were sitting in the living room after dinner. Michael and Jenny had gone home. They live in a smaller house about half a mile down the road on the same property. It was just me, Karen, and Victor. Karen started crying. Out of nowhere, just tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, I need to tell you something." I waited. "Victor and we've been having some problems, financial problems." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "The economy's been so hard, and Victor's business went under last year. And we lost everything. Our house, our savings, everything." Victor hung his head like he was ashamed. Good actor, I'll give him that.
"I didn't want to come here asking for help," Karen continued. "I really didn't. But I didn't know where else to go. And I thought maybe if you could see how much I've changed, maybe there was a way for me to be part of this family again." She looked at me with those eyes, the same eyes she'd had as a little girl when she wanted something and knew exactly how to get it. "Daddy, I know I wasn't there for Mom. I know I made mistakes, but I was going through so much. My marriage was falling apart and I was depressed, and I didn't know how to face it. I wanted to come home every single day. I tried to call, but I couldn't get through, and—" "You couldn't get through?" I interrupted. "The reception out here is so bad, and I didn't have the right number, and Karen, the phone number hasn't changed since 1986. She paused, just for a second. Then the tears came harder. I know. I'm so sorry, Daddy. I just want a chance to make things right. Please, I'm still your daughter." I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw what I'd been trying not to see. She wasn't sorry. She was performing. Every tear, every word, every trembling lip. It was a show. The same show she'd been putting on since she was a teenager, whenever she wanted something. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. "We can talk about it in the morning," I said. "I'm tired." I went upstairs to bed, but I didn't sleep. The next evening, Michael called me on my cell phone. "Dad, you need to come to the barn, right now, and don't let Karen or Victor know." His voice was strange, tight, like he was trying not to yell. I told Karen I was going to check on the equipment and walked out the back door. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, but I didn't stop to appreciate it. Something was wrong. Michael was standing behind the barn, out of sight of the house. He had his phone in his hand. "What is it?" I asked. "I was in the north field today, checking the fence line. Victor came out for a walk. He didn't see me behind the trees." Michael held up his phone. He was on a call. I recorded it. He pressed play. Victor's voice came through, clear as day. "No, I'm telling you, this is gonna work. The old man's clueless. I mean, he's 71, living alone out here in the middle of nowhere. He's desperate for company. Karen's playing him perfectly." A pause. The other person was speaking, but I couldn't hear them. Then Victor again. "The property's gotta be worth at least $500,000, maybe more with the development potential. Just gotta get her back in the will. Give it a month, tops. He's old, he's lonely, his wife just died. This is gonna be easy money." Another pause. Yeah, I know. But look, if the will thing doesn't work, there's other options. Karen's got some ideas about having him declared, not competent. Get power of attorney. Either way, we're walking out of here with something." The recording ended. I stood there in the fading light, my heart pounding in my chest. Michael's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. "There's more, Dad." "More?" Their rental car was unlocked. I found a folder in the back seat. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. They've been doing their homework. I opened it. Inside were printouts, copies of my property records pulled from public databases, tax assessments showing what the land was worth, articles about contesting wills in Pennsylvania, a list of lawyers who specialize in elder care disputes, and at the bottom, a handwritten note in Karen's handwriting. "Dad, widower, 71, possible early dementia? Get doctor to evaluate. Mom's will left everything to joint ownership, now all his. Michael listed as sole beneficiary. Need to change this. Possible early dementia? My own daughter, writing notes about how to have me declared mentally unfit." And something else caught my eye, a date at the top of one of the printouts. It was from 2020, March of 2020, 2 months before Eleanor died. She'd been researching this while her mother was on her deathbed, while Eleanor was asking for her every single day. while I was lying to my dying wife about why her daughter wasn't coming home. Karen wasn't too busy to come. She wasn't dealing with her own problems. She was planning her inheritance. I looked at Michael, my son, the one who stayed, the one who held his mother's hand until the end, the one who runs this farm like it's part of his soul. "What do we do, Dad?" I didn't answer right away. I was thinking about Eleanor, about the promise I made her.
"We don't do anything. Not yet. Let me think." That night, I went to the cemetery. It was dark by the time I got there. The groundskeeper knows me. I come often enough, so he let me in after hours. I walked the familiar path to Eleanor's headstone and stood there in the moonlight. "They think I'm a fool, Ellie." The wind was the only answer. "Our own daughter. She didn't come to see you because she was too busy figuring out how to take the farm. 20 years of silence, and this is why she came back." My voice cracked. "Not because she missed us, not because she was sorry, because she heard there was money." I knelt down and touched the cold granite. "I lied to you. Those last months, every time you asked if Karen was coming, I said yes. I said she was on her way, because I couldn't stand to see your heart break one more time." Tears were running down my face now. "And she never came. She was in Mexico, Ellie, on vacation, while you were dying." I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for my knees to ache, long enough for the cold to seep into my bones. But as I finally stood up, I remembered something. Eleanor's last words. Not just the promise about Michael, something else she'd said that night when I thought she was already asleep. "Don't feel guilty, Bobby. You did your best with her. Some people just choose who they're going to be, and you can't love them out of it." She knew. Even at the end, she knew Karen wasn't coming. She was giving me permission to let go. I touched the headstone one more time. "I won't let her take it, Ellie. I promise. Michael earned this, and Karen's going to get exactly what she deserves." The next morning, I made some phone calls. First, I called Beth Morrison. She's been my attorney for 15 years. Helped me and Eleanor set up the will and trust back when Eleanor first got diagnosed. Beth's sharp. Used to work for some big firm in Philadelphia before she moved out here. She's seen every trick in the book. "Bobby," she said when I explained the situation, "I wish I could say I was surprised, but this is more common than you'd think. Adult children who disappear for decades then show up when there's an inheritance at stake. Can they do anything? Contest the will? Get power of attorney?" "Let me pull up your file." I heard her typing. "Okay, so Eleanor's will left everything to you, with Michael as the sole beneficiary upon your passing. Karen is explicitly mentioned. She receives $10,000. That's important. It shows she wasn't forgotten or overlooked. It's much harder to contest a will when you're specifically named and given something. What about this competency business? Victor was talking about having me declared unfit."
"That's harder than it sounds. They'd need doctors to evaluate you, evidence of mental decline, a court hearing. And you're clearly competent. I talked to you 3 months ago. You were sharp as ever." She paused. "Plus, you have something they don't know about." "What's that?" "The trust." I'd almost forgotten. When we updated the will, Beth had suggested setting up an irrevocable trust for the farm, something to protect it from exactly this kind of situation. "The farm and the bulk of your savings are in that trust," Beth continued. "Michael is the successor trustee. Even if someone got power of attorney over you, which they won't, they couldn't touch the trust assets. It's locked, completely protected." I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief, I suppose. So what do I do? Let them make their move. Document everything. Get recordings if you can. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state, so as long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal. She paused. "And when they finally show their hand, we'll be ready." They want to have a family dinner Sunday night. Karen said she wants to talk about the future. Perfect. That's when they'll make their pitch. I'll be available by phone if you need me. Get some witnesses there if you can. People who can testify to what they said and did. I thanked her and hung up. Then I made 2 more calls. Pastor David Thornton. He'd been at Eleanor's bedside in her final days. He'd heard her wishes. He agreed to come to Sunday dinner. And Bill Henderson, our neighbor. He and his wife Martha had seen Karen's behavior at the funeral. They'd seen her dragged out of the church, screaming. They agreed to come too. About time someone held that girl accountable, Martha said over the phone. Eleanor was a saint. She deserved better than what Karen gave her. Yes, she did. Saturday night, I sat in my kitchen alone. Karen and Victor were upstairs, probably rehearsing their lines for tomorrow. Michael and Jenny knew the plan. Pastor Thornton and the Hendersons would arrive at 5, just before dinner. And I had one more thing to prepare. I went to my desk and pulled out a folder. Inside was a letter. Eleanor had written it 3 weeks before she died, when she still had the strength to hold a pen. She'd given it to me and told me to save it. In case Karen ever comes back, she'd said. She needs to hear this, but from me, not from you. I'd never opened it, never read it. I didn't need to. I knew what it would say. But tomorrow, Karen was going to hear her mother's voice one last time. And it was going to be the last thing she ever got from this family. I put the letter in my jacket pocket and went to bed. Tomorrow, the storm was finally going to hit. And when it was over, Karen was going to learn that you can't abandon people for 20 years and expect to be welcomed back when it's convenient for you. Some debts can't be repaid. Some bridges, once burned, stay ashes forever. Sunday, March 2nd, 2024. I woke up before dawn, like I always do. Old habits. 45 years of dairy farming, your body doesn't forget. I made coffee and sat on the back porch, watching the sun come up over the east field. The same view I'd seen 10,000 times. The same view Patrick Callahan saw when he built this place over 100 years ago. Today was the day. Karen and Victor were still asleep upstairs. They had no idea what was coming. They thought today was going to be their victory lap, the day they finally convinced the lonely old farmer to change his will. They were wrong. By 4 o'clock, everything was ready. Jenny had come over early to help with dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans from the garden I'd canned last summer. Eleanor's recipes, every one of them. It felt right somehow, like she was there with us. Michael arrived at 4:30. He gave me a look when he walked in, a silent question. I nodded. We were ready. At 5 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Karen rushed to answer it, probably expecting more of her performance audience. But when she opened the door, her smile faltered. Pastor David Thornton stood on the porch in his Sunday suit. Behind him were Bill and Martha Henderson, our neighbors for 32 years. Pastor Thornton, Karen said, recovering quickly. What a surprise. I didn't know you were coming. Your father invited me, he said, stepping inside. Thought it would be nice to have a family gathering, like old times. The Hendersons followed him in. Martha's eyes locked onto Karen, and I saw something cold in them. Martha had been Eleanor's closest friend. She hadn't forgotten what Karen did at the funeral. Karen looked at me. For just a moment, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. Good. The more the merrier, Victor said, stepping forward with his hand extended. I'm Victor, Karen's husband. So great to meet you all. Pastor Thornton shook his hand, but didn't smile. The Hendersons didn't shake it at all. We sat down for dinner. For the first hour, Karen was on her best behavior. She complimented Jenny's cooking. She asked Pastor Thornton about the church. She told stories about her life in California. Carefully edited versions, I'm sure. Victor chimed in occasionally, playing the supportive husband. Michael barely spoke. He just watched, waited. And then, as Jenny started clearing the dessert plates, Karen made her move. She reached across the table and took my hand. "Daddy, I've been thinking a lot about this visit, about what it means, about what I want for our family going forward." Here it comes, I thought. I know I haven't been the daughter you deserved. I know I made mistakes. But being here these past 2 weeks, it's made me realize how much I've missed, how much I want to be part of this family again. Tears welled up in her eyes, right on cue.
Mom's gone. We can't change that. But we can change what happens next. We can be a family again, a real family. She squeezed my hand. Daddy, have you thought about the future? About what's going to happen to this place when you're not here anymore? And there it was. Victor leaned forward, sensing his opening. What Karen's trying to say, Mr. Callahan, is that family should take care of family. And we've been thinking, with Michael so busy running the farm and you getting older, maybe it's time to make sure everyone is taken care of. You know. He paused, trying to look casual. Legally. Have you updated your will since Eleanor passed? The room went silent. Pastor Thornton set down his coffee cup. The Hendersons exchanged a glance. Michael's jaw tightened. I let the silence stretch, let them think they'd won. Then I stood up. Funny you should ask, Karen. I've been thinking about the future too. I walked to the sideboard and picked up a folder I'd placed there earlier. The same folder Michael had found in Victor's rental car, plus a few additions. Since we're talking about family, maybe we should talk about what family really means. I set the folder on the table and opened it. This is a recording from 5 days ago. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Victor's voice filled the room. The old man's clueless. Just gotta get her back in the will. Give it a month, tops. He's old, he's lonely. This is gonna be easy money. Victor's face went white. Karen's mouth fell open. That's taken out of context, Victor started. Is it? I pulled out the next document. These are printouts from your rental car. Property records, tax assessments, articles about contesting wills in Pennsylvania. I held up the handwritten note. And this is your handwriting, Karen. Dad, widower, 71, possible early dementia. Get doctor to evaluate. Michael listed as sole beneficiary. Need to change this. Karen snatched her hand back like I'd burned her. You went through our things? That's a violation of… The date on this printout is March 2020. My voice was steady now, cold. 2 months before your mother died, while she was lying in that bed upstairs, asking for you every single day. You were researching how to take her house. I wasn't. You told me you couldn't come because you were going through so much. You told me the phone reception was bad. You told me you tried to call. I shook my head. You were in Cabo San Lucas, Karen, on vacation. I have the credit card receipts. Your cousin Margaret posted pictures on Facebook. Karen's face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Daddy, please, let me explain. No. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. You don't get to explain, but your mother does. The room went completely still. I held up the envelope. Eleanor's handwriting was on the front. For Karen, if she ever comes back. Your mother wrote this 3 weeks before she died. She told me to save it in case you ever showed up asking for something. I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. I've never read it, but I think it's time. Karen was crying now. Real tears this time, I think, or maybe not. I couldn't tell anymore. I began to read. Dear Karen, if your father is reading this to you, it means you finally come home. I wish I could believe it was because you missed us, but I know you, sweetheart. I've known you since before you were born, And I know that if you're hearing this letter, it's because there's something you want. I waited for you, Karen. Every single day of my illness, I waited. I asked Michael to call you. I asked your father to call you. I prayed you would walk through that door. Just once. Just to hold my hand. Just to say goodbye. You never came. I don't know where you were. I don't know what was more important than your dying mother. But I do know this. Some things can't be forgiven. Some absences can't be explained away. Your brother Michael stayed. He moved his family into this house to take care of me. He held my hand during chemotherapy. He read to me when I couldn't sleep. He was here, Karen, every single day. Where were you? I love you. I will always love you. You are my daughter, and nothing can change that. But love and trust are not the same thing, and I cannot trust you with what your father and I built. The farm goes to Michael. He earned it. He stayed when you left. He sacrificed when you couldn't be bothered. I've asked your father to leave you $10,000. Enough to know we didn't forget you. Not enough to reward you for breaking my heart. If you're angry, I understand. If you want to contest this, go ahead. But know that this is my wish, not your father's. Mine. And I made it with a clear mind and a broken heart. I hope someday you understand. I hope someday you realize that family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up. It's about being there. It's about love that costs you something. You chose not to pay that cost, and now you have to live with it. Goodbye, Karen. I hope you find peace. Your mother, Eleanor. I folded the letter and set it on the table. The only sound was Karen sobbing. Victor stood up. His face was red, his fists clenched. This is ridiculous. You can't disinherit your own daughter based on a letter from a dead woman. We'll sue. We'll take this to court. We'll... Mr. Wells, Pastor Thornton's voice cut through the room like a blade. I was at Eleanor's bedside when she died. I witnessed her final wishes. I will testify to that in any court in this country. Martha Henderson stood up.
And I was at the funeral, Karen. We all were. When you showed up 3 hours late, so drunk you could barely walk. When you interrupted the eulogy to scream about how you weren't mentioned in the program. When Michael had to physically escort you out of the church while your mother's casket sat at the front of the room. Karen flinched like she'd been slapped. Half the town saw it, Bill Henderson added. Half the town heard what you said. You called your mother a manipulative old woman. You said the farm should have been sold years ago. You said, "Stop." Karen's voice was barely a whisper. "Please stop." But I wasn't finished. You want to talk about contesting the will? Fine. Let's talk about the trust. The irrevocable trust that your mother and I set up before she died. The one that puts the farm and most of my savings completely out of your reach. Even if you got power of attorney over me, which you won't, you couldn't touch it. I looked at Victor. My attorney reviewed your elder care dispute research. She said it was impressive, thorough, but useless. You can't steal what's already protected. Victor's face went from red to purple. For a moment, I thought he might swing at me. "This isn't over," he said through clenched teeth. "Karen is your daughter. She has rights." Karen had rights, I corrected him. She had 20 years of rights. 20 years of birthdays, holidays, phone calls she never made. 11 months of her mother's illness when she could have come home. She chose not to, and choices have consequences. I looked at my daughter, my firstborn, the little girl who used to ride on my shoulders, who used to laugh when I pushed her on the swing, who used to fall asleep in my arms. That girl was gone, Maybe she'd been gone for a long time. You have until tomorrow morning to pack your things and leave. Don't come back. Daddy, my name is Robert, or Mr. Callahan. You stopped being able to call me Daddy the day you chose a beach vacation over your mother's deathbed. Karen stared at me. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Victor grabbed her arm. Come on, we're leaving. This family is insane. They walked out the front door. A minute later, I heard their rental car start and pull away, gravel crunching under the tires. I stood at the window and watched them go. Michael put his hand on my shoulder. You okay, Dad? I nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I am. That was 3 weeks ago. I heard through the family grapevine that Karen and Victor drove straight to Arizona. Apparently Victor has some scheme going on out there, another elderly mark, another inheritance to chase. I pray for whoever they're targeting. Maybe I should have called the police. But honestly, I'm just tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of Karen.
She hasn't called, hasn't written. Part of me expected she would. One more apology, one more attempt. But there's been nothing. Maybe she finally understood. Or maybe she just moved on to easier targets. Either way, she's not my problem anymore. Last week, I signed the papers to officially transfer the farm to Michael. He tried to refuse at first, said he wanted me to keep it, at least on paper. But I'm 71 years old. I've seen too many families torn apart by unclear wills and surprise deaths. Better to do it now while I can see it through. The Callahan farm, 4 generations of work and sacrifice and love, belongs to Michael now, just like Eleanor wanted. I still live in the farmhouse, of course. That was part of the deal. I'm not going anywhere. Michael and Jenny are just down the road, and they come by every day. And on Saturday mornings, my grandkids come over. Tommy is 14, Sarah is 11. They're learning to drive the tractor. Tommy's getting pretty good at it, actually. And Sarah has started helping me in the vegetable garden. She wants to plant sunflowers this spring. Last Saturday, I was sitting on the porch watching them drive the old John Deere across the field. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. And for a moment, I could swear I saw Eleanor standing beside me. "They're going to be okay, Bobby," she said. Or maybe I just imagined it. "The farm's going to be okay." I smiled. "Yeah, Ellie, I think it is." If you're watching this and you have a family member like Karen, I want you to know something. You don't owe them your life's work just because you share DNA. You don't owe them forgiveness just because they finally showed up. And you don't have to feel guilty for protecting what's yours. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And loyalty is a choice Karen made a long time ago when she walked out that door and never looked back. You worked too hard for too long to let anyone take what you've built, even if that someone is your own child. Document everything. Talk to a lawyer. Protect yourself. Because some people only show up when there's something to take, and you deserve better than that. If you've experienced something like this, a family member who disappeared and only came back for money, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Sometimes it helps just to know you're not alone. And if someone you love is going through this, share this video with them. Let them know there's hope. I share stories like this every week here on John's Revenge Stories. Real people who stood up for themselves when everyone counted them out. If this story meant something to you, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss the next one. And if you think Karen got exactly what she deserved, hit that like button. It really helps more people find these stories. Take care of yourselves, friends. And remember, you can't abandon people for 20 years and expect to be welcomed back when it's convenient for you. Actions have consequences. I'll see you in the next one.